is waiting on fries. That you don't get it? You don't. What do you mean you don't get waiting on fries?
Hopefully the customer never hears waiting on fries, but all this time on the entree and it's perfectly executed and then you're like,
ready to go.
I forgot to fire the fries.
I just always use that when I forgot to put somebody's order in, and I was like, hey, I'm just waiting on the fries. It's going to be 2 more minutes. Realistically, I come back 10 minutes with the food.
Exactly. They just know that their food's not there and the server said they're still waiting on fries.
I guess we're just waiting on fries.
You know, there were some qualms that happened last week, and Justin made some statements, and Justin now has to go back and refute these statements a little bit. We had a whole bunch of people hopping into the DMs and screaming at his phone because, what'd you say, Just?
I said that winter beers suck.
Say it again?
Winter beers suck.
A little louder for the people in the back.
I stick by my story. Winter beers suck.
Unbelievable. We're going to talk about that in a second. But before we get all into that, we've got Chef James Piccolo in here. You might know him from Terry Lodge, Marlowe's in Brookfield, the Tipperary in Montauk. I say that with a pinky out. It's how it feels a little bit when you get it off the tongue. But he's sitting in here with us to discuss why possibly that winter beers don't suck and they're just maybe just not for Justin.
I don't know if I could agree with that, but
we'll get deeper into that.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk a little bit about life and work balances. Obviously, COVID has made things a lot harder for everybody. We've got families. We've got people to provide for. You know, restaurants are closing down left and right. We're looking for jobs. We're seeing if guys are even trying to give hours out. I think, Noomz, we discussed that. What's the spot you're at?
Well, I'm at Diner Bruco now, so I've kind of stepped out of the kitchen.
So I was at Manhattan, but they recently just started rehiring to start building that team back up. But I'm at Diner Bruco now, so I'm not going to be a part of that rehiring process.
Okay. And
do they know something that we don't know about some capacity increases or something like that?
No, I don't think they know something we don't know. I think they're just trying to get the ball rolling again. I don't think they're planning to actually reopen the store until early next year. But they're going to start moving on it now.
And then this is like the reoccurring theme. I was just saying a second ago to the guys that, you know, we're all in our own little worlds to some extent, and they're all so different depending on which town or which city or which state you're in at the present moment. Where, you know, working in the city next to guys, they're just like, we're so fortunate to actually have a job right now where I have friends that are just sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing, and they can't do anything because nobody's hiring, at least in our business. I at first said I can't feel that way because I see out here in Westchester, people are hiring nonstop, but also our rules are far more lax than they are throughout the city. We don't have to do 25% occupancy. We're allowed to have people inside. Although I do believe that we are going back into 50% occupancy instead of the 75 coming up in Connecticut side, or at least that was the last I heard.
I didn't hear anything about that.
I didn't hear anything like that.
Things constantly change through. We'll have to reference that at some point when I get a chance to look at it. But James has been around the block a little bit. You've taken some part in some competitions.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about things that have you win competitions when you talk about cooking? Like when we have bar competitions, people are judging on the way that you kind of carry out some flair. They're carrying judgment points on how you actually execute. Also originality and things like this. Is it very similar as
so for the chowder competition, it was actually there was no like judge panel. So it was every person who's tasting your chowder is giving you a point score, and then they would tally those points at the end. So you're testing chowder for 10,000 people.
It's a lot of chowder.
60 gallons of chowder for each competition. It was crazy. 6 hours nonstop, handing out 2-ounce shots of chowder.
What do you do to make so much chowder? Is it just nonstop?
I mean, you're doing batches a couple days ahead of time, and then basically reheating everything day of, and then transporting it and keeping it hot throughout the entire competition, which is a whole mess on its own. You know,
it's immensely intense.
Yeah, we've done a couple. We've never done a chowder competition, but we've done a couple of competitions like Brisket King we did, and that chili competition back in the day, right? Yeah. Oh, and Wing Fest we did, and we did a chili competition. And sometimes the hardest Burger Blast every year. Sometimes the hardest thing is the execution of like the actual day.
Yeah.
And you have a million people, and you're just trying to keep the consistent thing flying out or whatever, and you got that line, you got to move it, especially if they're tallying out those, like Wingfest and Burger, they got to put their you put their chip in the bucket or whatever, and just by not having it ready, you're losing votes. So especially in those kind of things, it's tough to think.
Oh, because when you did that, the people that are coming out to test all the food and try all the different samples that are out there, they each get one single token when they walk in. And from that point, that single person's token has to go into a specific bucket, and that's the vote. Whoever's got the most wins. And there's no room to kind of like forge the ballots a little bit there.
No, because everybody's only got the one token, so you've got to be ready to serve people as soon as they start walking in. Gotcha. And like the big problems we realize is people are there and they're hungry immediately, and if you're not ready to go, you just miss like the first 100 votes or so, and that'll be the end of the competition for you.
Tapping out at the end.
So going back to this chowder competition, though, I'm born in Boston. My family is from the New England area and surrounding Boston areas. I'm a firm believer that there's really only one clam chowder, which is the New England clam chowder, and this farce of a thing that they make down here in Manhattan that's red. I don't know what's going on with that. But you had a mix, which I've never heard of.
Yeah, so it was basically, I mean, your basic New England is your base, and then it was just kind of building on that flavor.
Explain what goes into there to somebody that might not know what's in there. Like
Jay's saying he doesn't know what clam chowder is.
Essentially me.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, cream, potatoes, clams. As far as New England, I mean, some people would put bacon in it.
Is that really just it? It's like cream and water, I guess.
I mean,
just cream. He didn't say
clam
water.
Juice and
I really thought there was a lot more into clam chowder.
I mean, sometimes
I could do this.
The simplest way is the best way. So.
Yeah.
What do you wind up? Do you add additional flavorings of spices or anything into there?
I mean, whatever seasoning you're putting into, but like traditional New England clam chowder is very, very straightforward. Like, don't fuck with it.
It's just a thick, hearty potato-based chowder soup.
Okay, so you take the soup, right? And now what you actually did for the competition that there was, where was this competition?
It was in Westport, Connecticut.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Up the line here.
Yeah.
Along the water.
Yeah. Right at I forgot the name of the park, but right off of exit 17.
Okay.
And like 40 other restaurants from like all over the country.
Yeah.
Tons of different categories. There was like traditional New England, then soups and bisques, then creative chowder, which is the category that I entered in.
So there were multiple different entry areas that you could go into. Okay. So like you said, I'm going to really blow the top off these guys, and I'm just going to hit them with what's essentially the red and the white.
Yeah.
Combined.
Make a sweet baby out of it.
A little yin-yang action almost.
Yeah.
I don't know how that even plates. What does it look like?
So it was, kind of creamy and smooth like a bisque, but chunky like a New England chowder.
Chunky with potatoes and clams?
Potatoes, clams, and carrots, celery, onions, shit ton of bacon, pancetta.
That sounds like a winner to me right there.
And then, like, thrown in, kind of making it an Italian twist and throwing in some marinara and really, like, building that flavor. And, yeah, it was awesome.
Did you encounter some, like, chowder purists saying, like, what the hell are you doing here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You were like, I'm in the creative section here. Leave me alone,
that's
guys.
basically. It's like if you want your basic, go
down the road
over
a
there.
little bit. Yeah.
That guy's got it. So
that's cool.
Do you think there's like a way to produce like a smokehouse version of a clam chowder that doesn't involve clam really at all, and it would be like a meat-based chowder?
That sounds like a stew.
Thanks. There we go.
Sounds like cheeseburger soup or something.
Yeah. And there we go. I mean, we're coming up on the winter time right now anyway, and as we are approaching, people come in, they want soups all the time. I know they come in here and they ask for soups.
They do. This is not my department, this is Mikey.
Do we have to get Mike out of the back of the kitchen right now and have this conversation?
I think Mike left, so we might be out of luck on that, but...
Gotcha.
I think the biggest thing that we get pushed for is chili. That's always this time of year, especially since we stopped making it every day. It's second most first is when's New Year opening, second is when's chili coming back.
James, if I was to say like 4 top kind of soups that everyone always wants, everyone kind of always asks, could you throw some of those at me? Like, if we were to add them onto the smokehouse menu, what would those be?
I mean, people usually want chowder. I mean, if I see chowder on a menu, I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat it.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Any type of like squash puree with, you know, maybe some like crab meat and chili oil, something like that. That's a big one. And I mean, chicken noodle, you just can't really go wrong.
Reminds you of being a child and home, and
the
warmth.
It's comforting. It's,
Correct.
And then, a nice hearty stew is, you know, depending on how I mean, is it a soup? Is it a stew?
Does it really matter at the end of the day?
No, it's all a matter of opinion.
Can you throw smoked meats into the stew and have it still work beautifully?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever come across
brisket
that.
stew? Yeah.
That sounds delicious.
Nice.
Yeah.
Gus, you taking these notes?
I might make it at home this week.
Well, Mike's got a whole soup season thing. Like, Mike's big into his soups. You don't have to worry about that.
So this could be happening this year here.
It could be. And actually, I think as soon as you start calling it a stew, there ceases to be any real rules to it. It's kind of just That's why it's called a stew. This is my stew. You know, you make what you gotta make. But I had an idea for a ghost kitchen to run out of here that Mike initially did not like, but I think he's coming around on it. I thought we'd do basically the menu that James just said, and make 4 soups or whatnot, and make like a fake Uber. Not a fake Uber, but a different Uber that's not smokehouse, or just call it like soups, I don't know, whatever, on Uber, and put it out there and have 4 soups ready to go and just sell it on Uber and Grubhub. And it's high prep, but no execution. This is a guy with a ladle just filling up cups of soup and stuff and sending it out the door once it's done. So I told Mike, we should offset. We're at 50% capacity and whatever. We're not doing it in the store. As it starts to get cold, we lose the outside and stuff like that. We could offset some of those sales with like this side hustle soup business. And he was like, I'm not making soup. This is a barbecue restaurant. Now you want me to make a soup restaurant? But I think he's starting to come around with it because, like I said, it's going to be labor intensive. But once it's ready, like through dinner service and through lunch service, it's pretty quick if that's all we're putting up on the platform.
Your point's valid in the sense that it is going to get cold out here. We are in the Northeast territory. People are not going to be sitting outside anymore. You're about to lose all of those seats you have outside all of these restaurants because who in their right mind wants to even sit in the heated tents that are showing up outside right now as time gets a little bit colder and colder?
There's definitely a few people who are willing to sit outside in the cold and drink.
Yeah, they would.
100%.
They'll do it.
Well, the real truth will be when it comes to that moment, how many of them are actually going to be sitting out there in the cold?
Like 2 or 3 a night, but they're there.
Yeah, so I think that you're correct in saying, let's just launch this Uber Ghost Kitchen right out of here where you can produce everything you need anyway, because we've discussed it so many times where we're going to have to start thinking creatively outside the box to make sure that we're staying afloat and keeping money coming into the businesses. And at the end of the day, like you just said, something with soup is just a ladle, and you don't care how many times the Uber thing is going off.
Because you're just putting soup into a cup, yeah.
Correct. It's going right into the quart things, and that's it. That's it. Send them packing. Take the little money and let Uber take their money for this one. I did yell the other day when somebody was ordering Seamless. I was like, they sell food right out of their restaurant. Just call them, and they'll deliver it to you. Why are you giving the extra money to Seamless? You're getting no benefit.
You know what it is? People are lazy. They don't want to make the phone call.
Truth.
Also, I think most people notice, but a lot of restaurants charge more on Uber and Seamless than if you just called the restaurant itself to make up for those margins in there.
That was my statement. But I mean, if you know the hacks of how things work, you know why those things are happening. And yeah, I think I wound up saving my girlfriend like good $6 by not having to order right off of Seamless, I'm sure. And that money went to something else. It probably went to that foot rub we got the other day.
$6 foot rub, huh?
No, it was a portion. Like 15% off there.
Dude, it's all about the convenience. The Uber stuff is just, it's on the phone already and everything's stored. They just hit reorder and it's done. People pay for convenience. That's what they say.
Correct.
That's why you got to make your website super convenient and make your online ordering platform super convenient, and then you can steal people from Uber and Grubhub, etc.
James, talk to me about being in the various different places that you've been, because they're not necessarily all similar to each other, I don't think.
Was the competition on your own or for a restaurant?
I represented Terry Lodge, but I mean, it wasn't like it was just the name there,
okay.
You know. Otherwise, it was all me. So,
working in Montauk, which is a kind of like a full summer spot
Yeah, very seasonal.
That's all you really see. You know, I open up Instagram in the summertime, everyone tagging end of the world, right? Like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's literally the furthest place you can go in the U.S., isn't it? Far east?
Yes.
At least on the island. I think it does surpass, I guess, Rhode Island tippy-top-ish.
It does, yeah.
So, where you're now, this was a while ago now that you were working in this.
This was right after I graduated high school.
Oh, really? So that was like the first place you were in, introductory business.
Dishwasher, prep cook, did it all, ground up.
How long was your progression from a dishwasher up to like executive chef there?
3 years.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah. So,
Considerably faster.
Also because it's seasonal, so like, doing one season dishwasher, prep cook, same gig.
Yeah.
And then, next season, okay, hey, we're going to throw you on the line or have you do salads or, brick oven pizza, something like that. And, it worked out. I was,
was there
able to do it.
Was there a high turnaround because of the season? So
it was always, and the management in that same name restaurant, but probably a different owner every single year I worked there.
Which is interesting to see that business style. And I see it on the Nautical Mile. You see a lot of that turnover happening year after year with different owners coming in, and somebody just wants no part of it and said maybe they didn't make ends meet enough, and they said let's unload this thing before we hold on to it any further.
Yeah, I mean basically someone would come in, rent it from the owner of the property, and then sign a lease for a year. If it worked out and they were doing well, then maybe they re-signed, but it rarely happened.
Well, as the owners continue to want to get their money's worth or whatever the going rate value is, it's not always the actual fair value for the next guy to make enough money to stay as an invested interest, I would think.
Yeah.
Now, cooking out there where everything I think is more so seafoodish feel,
completely,
right? Yeah. And then you handled that for a couple years, and then you come back and you go into, what's the next restaurant here?
It was Marlowe's in Brookfield.
In Brookfield. And the theme of this restaurant then is?
Bar food. I mean, nothing crazy.
Okay.
Most of the restaurants in Montauk were also bar food, but definitely seafood centric. It wasn't that difficult. I mean, I had been cooking food like that my whole life, so it was kind of mindless for me. But when I went to Terry Lodge, that was like a totally different ball game.
Was that the almost nervous wake up call where you're just like, oh, everything is so much different in here than what I've been used to for the last years?
Yeah. I was like, wow, I don't know shit. I'm amazed I got to where I was without culinary school, without real training. But yeah, I just kept my head down and paid attention, and it kind of worked out.
Those self-realization moments of the I don't know shit are the best moments of all time as far as learning experiences go. And to tie that back, me coming up in working in bars, it was corporate bar, then it was just dive bar and tiki-ish bar. And then from there, my buddy Eric Romero, who is at Modern and running that bar program there, is a craft cocktail nerd. And at that point I said, I want to come on, I want to learn something, and I want you to yell at me because I'm breaking various rules that I need to learn.
Yeah.
And having that, and especially because he's a couple years younger than me and we're buddies, he doesn't want to yell at me. And I'm like, dude, fucking tear me apart, please. Like, that's what you want, and that's how you learn.
You kind of need that discipline and that structure a little bit to just kind of whip you into place, especially in the kitchen.
In the amount of times that you learn that you've been doing something incorrectly the whole way.
Yeah. Or not even incorrectly, but there's just a better way that you could be doing it.
Yeah, or in a cocktail setting, a more professional way of doing something than putting two plastic cups together to strain the shot that you just made instead of actually using the tin and the strainer like an actual professional bartender, right? But going into Terry Lodge and saying, all right, now I'm learning something that's completely different in the culinary world here for what you were used to, too. You started in Terry Lodge doing what role?
I was the grill cook.
Okay.
I was like purely just banging out meat for 600 people a night.
Were you, did you move from the grill at some point within that, or did you master that set and you're like, this is where I'm
I got hired because I could grill meat. I mean, that was like the biggest thing. It's like, first thing I did was like, okay, cook these proteins. And then you would get bored otherwise. You have to move to something new. So, went from grilled and then the pasta station, which pasta station in an Italian restaurant is
probably the hardest station in their kitchen.
Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, wild. You're cranking out probably, 30 pastas every 6 minutes. And that never stops for like 7 hours straight. And it really can it can either build you up or it could destroy you. And I watched a lot of people go down. But
we had a pasta station at Manhattan. It was our meat entremet's responsibility to man that station. They had maybe 2 pastas at a time.
Okay.
And that made it the hardest station in the kitchen.
Yeah.
The management of keeping your pasta boil going, keeping your noodles ready to go, keeping all the toppings,
seasoned,
and then accoutrements that go with each
yeah.
pasta dish. And one pasta dish can have like 7 or 8 things that go into that one dish. So even the prep to get ready for service for that pasta station.
Yeah.
Intense.
And everything's, a la minute. So, we're building pastas to order. There's the only thing that's like pre-made is marinara and bolognese. Otherwise, every other sauce is
getting built right then and there.
Right then.
And going into then pasta from the grill, again, is kind of that experience where it's like, I'm literally just learning things from the base. I thought pasta was just pasta. It's simple. You throw it into water, and then you realize that it's not just that, and there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more having to do everything on the fly like that, where as other places I had worked, it's like, okay, all these sauces are ready to go, and I'm kind of just like, pastas are par cooked and 2-minute pickups. But this was, fresh, frozen, that we'd make in-house, so 4-minute pickups in the water and right out to Expo.
And how long was Terry Lodge right here in Portchester?
Terry Lodge was 2008, and then they just closed the Portchester location last October.
Okay, so that's a pretty damn good run, though.
But it was a revamp from, like, 2008 was the reopening.
Reopening,
because it's been around. My wife's father used to work at Terry Lodge, like
the original Terry
Lodge. Like
Justin's doing the hand motion like he's throwing a football. So he's trying to say it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, before me and my wife existed.
I worked as a busboy at the original Terry Lodge when I was like 12 years old.
That was like the real entry into the business, kind of getting your footing. And they were like, "Get this stupid kid out of the way. I got things to do." And you didn't know any better. You're just doing whatever you're doing.
It was crazy.
That's very similar. I lived in Boca Raton, Florida for some time period, and there was a little restaurant right across the street from my neighborhood called La Luna, and it was a little Italian spot. And sure enough, I just went in there one day. I was probably high as shit because that's what you're doing at 15, 16. And I was just like, you guys hiring people and stuff? And I wound up getting hired. They needed somebody to do soup and salad
and stuff.
Yeah, that was probably that was your first job. You don't even know how I don't know how to do anything. But sure enough, I was in the back, and the soup and salad thing was kind of intense because every single dish came with a soup or a salad. So you were servicing every single table that was going out. And I thought it was still acceptable, like smoke a joint before work and then come in there, not realizing that really threw me off. So
yeah, it doesn't work.
After the first couple days of me like getting yelled at, being like, "Where the hell are the salads and the soups?" I was like, "I'm gonna go in sober tomorrow."
And we just talked about how easy the soups are to execute during service too.
But it was like, it was like,
it's a ladle.
The tickets were like, it said either pasta fagioli or it said house salad or Caesar, and there were 3 options. That was a lot
house
to
salad,
deal with.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it was a lot to deal with at that time. But you really do learn everything when you like walk into your first job because you get shit on so hard by guys being like, "Why don't you know this shit?" And you're like, "Chill, guys, it's my first job." And you start learning, and you pick up the pieces, and now look at me. I'm a conductive, or I'm conducive to society out here in restaurants, somewhat. So where do you go from Terry Lodge?
So I was at Terry Lodge for 12 years. I went to, they opened a market right next to the Portchester location in 2010, and I opened that with them. Basically working a butcher counter, and doing, prepared foods in the back, and that was all right. I mean, it wasn't like being on the line. It was a lot of person interaction, which is not.
It's moving from the back to the front.
Yeah, having to put that smile on every day. Yeah.
This guy knows something about that.
Was not for me. Yeah.
So, and then just to touch on that a little bit, because we just said it was a reopen of Terry Lodge, and I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I think what happened was, so Terry Lodge was a restaurant, you know, I'm doing the hand thing again, I'm sorry. Yeah, you know, opened back then, and then Mario Batali and Joel Bastianic reopened it, and that's the time you came back to it, right? So you had in the original location, you worked as a busboy, you came back, and then I think my understanding is what they were trying to do with Terry Market was make kind of similar feel to the Italy thing that they had created. So it was like, I don't know if you're familiar, but it's kind of open floor plan where you would essentially have several, I don't want to say concepts because it's all inside of one concept, but you have almost different stores inside of an open place. So you could just kind of walk around and do.
It was kind of like a marketplace idea where you could go from like having a small cafe and then you'd go to the market that kind of supplied the cafe, so you could have like your espresso and that biscotti sort of thing, and then you can go buy meats and wines and cheeses and all sorts.
Yeah, I mean, like here's the, you know, we're selling fresh pasta that we're making in the back. You have your cheesemonger who's pushing out cheese like crazy, and then you have your deli section and your whole butchery. You know.
Similar to that, I think Cooked & Co. Eastchester attempted to kind of do something like that, where they were partly market and then they opened up a restaurant side as well to things. Which, honestly, I think that's a great business model because you're kind of reaping the benefits of having an almost full day's worth of business where people are coming out to get what they want to actually eat, and they can actually sit down and be served some of that thing that, you know, they're already producing in the back, kind of.
I mean, the idea is there, but what people want is one-stop shopping. So if they can buy all the things that they need for a pasta except tomato and basil, I mean, what's the point? Like, that's... Okay, now I have to go to this other store to get the things that I need to use all this stuff.
And we do that with Amazon today, really, at the end of the day. I'm waiting until Thursday comes to get a goddamn cutting board. Just because I didn't want to go to the store with all the 12 other stores I have to go to purchase a handful of different things for the new apartment here. Now it's like Amazon. I'll wait till Thursday so I don't have to go to 12 stores at once. No way. Totally.
That you don't have a cutting board?
We threw it out.
Oh, okay.
You know, when it's supposed to get tossed out and you didn't just pull the trigger for the new one, that's where we were kind of at. So tell me about, like, James, the balance of having a family. Congrats, you have a newborn as well. Tell me about the balance that goes into this, because we don't get holidays off. We don't get all these days off that all of our 9-to-5 buddies typically have all the time.
I'm off Thanksgiving.
You make your own schedule. Shut up.
We're closed on Thanksgiving.
There you go.
Are you guys open Christmas Day?
No.
All right, yeah, okay.
I'm off this Thanksgiving too. I'm excited.
Mike and I, we used to work at the Rye Ridge movie theater right, in high school, and that was every Thanksgiving and every Christmas and every holiday. It was like, not only are you working, it's the busiest day of the year.
Yeah.
All 5 of those days were the busiest day of the year. I don't know, do the math, but that's what it was.
Wow, Rye Ridge movie theater.
Yeah, wow. That's a throwback, right?
Yeah.
So when we opened this store, you know what? I don't care. I'm off Thanksgiving and Christmas. I had to work pretty much from 17 until 22. Because then I worked at the country club too. Yeah, so 17 until we opened our restaurant. I had to work every Thanksgiving and every Christmas. We said, nope, I don't care how busy it is. We're closed on those days.
I'm excited to not work Thanksgiving this year. I don't know about you guys.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. I was in the middle of talking to James about important shit, and you were letting me know that you guys have off. It's awesome. But tell me about, like, the balance that occurs. You have to have a very understanding lady in your life to be able to accept these things, especially if she's not in the same business that we are, really.
That was the biggest thing. She is understanding of, you know, if you do this, you kind of have to have a passion for it. And if someone doesn't understand that passion, it's just not going to work out. She and I actually worked in the Tipperary together, on the line in the kitchen while we were dating and living together.
Before you go further into that, because that's in Montauk.
Yeah.
Were you were living out in Montauk already?
Oh yeah.
Previous to working there, you were just living in Montauk.
My family's had a house there for years, so
Gotcha.
I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go live
Gotcha.
I live
Okay.
here and work 5-minute walking distance from my house.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Typically most people aren't just living in Montauk and that was it. Maybe they go live there for the summertime for the job, and maybe there's a job house. But okay, so you met her there. You were both working on the line.
Actually, we went to high school together, so we've known each other for a very long time.
The story gets thicker.
And then after, probably in 2004, I think, 2005, she came out there. We were starting to live together, and then, one day she was a waitress in the restaurant, and I'm like, I need you in the kitchen. Like, I was the only one in the kitchen cranking out like 90 covers a night by myself, every single station. I was just like, oh, I'm drowning. I need help. So.
That's pretty badass that it turned out to be your girlfriend who's going to jump in the kitchen with you.
Yeah. I mean, and then that was kind of it. If you can work the line next to somebody and still go home with them, yeah.
Now I'm even questioning if you were actually drowning in the kitchen or if you're just looking for an excuse to tell her to come back and help you bang out a couple meals here, right?
Yeah.
Stick with that story, though.
Yeah.
But, all right, so is she still in this business as well?
No, she's actually a managing editor for Wine Enthusiast magazine.
Okay, so in some form of the business, but more of a regular lifestyle as far as time goes.
Yeah.
And balancing the times that you're gone are mostly night, I would presume, when you're working.
Yeah, I mean, all day. I mean,
even earlier. So you're able to kind of figure out who's taking care of the little ones at this point, no?
Well, I mean, when I started out, I mean, I'd be home on like Wednesday, Thursdays. You know, those were my days off, maybe. It was really the days that you're home, like you just have to be involved. You can't just be like, I slept 12 hours in the past 8 days. Like, so I'm going to sleep an entire day. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, you just see, if they're understanding, you just have to make it work. And if they're not, you're just fucked. So, I mean, sorry.
I mean, as blunt as it is, that's accurate.
Oh, yeah, we've watched these relationships fail all the time with people that are not understanding of it. Yeah, somebody was just saying the other day, I forget even where it was, they were like, I'm never dating a chef again. They're all the hours that are being put in. It's the stupidest thing. Why would I do it to myself?
Yeah, but you don't have to cook when you get home if you date a chef.
Yeah.
That's the one benefit. Yeah. Although I'm sure the last thing you want to do after you've been cooking all day is cook some more at home, no?
It's totally different.
Yeah.
Totally different. I don't mind cooking for 8 hours at the restaurant and then coming home and cooking a meal for myself.
Yeah. It's like, maybe I'll make a grilled cheese when I come home. Yeah. Or peanut butter sandwich. Yeah.
Just, you go through...
I had a grilled ham and cheese myself today.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
It was sexy, I'm not going to lie.
You go through something similar, though, too. You're a family man. You've got kids. You do a million things a day. And I'm actually... It's funny that we're even having this conversation today on this episode because earlier today I said to myself, fuck does Just do this repeatedly? Because he's running around all day long, squeezing time in for everything. You're doing things with the kids. You're managing doing this thing with us. You're out here building the new restaurant, too. There's so much balance that goes on. And not only that, I'm not praising him. I don't owe him anything. But he's very
I'm
organized.
waiting for it. You know, I'm like, where's the hammer?
He's very organized. The show sheet was already updated today, like well ahead of time. Like, where does this time come from?
He's unbelievably organized for someone who does as many things as he actually does.
And I think that you kind of have to be, James, to be able to balance all these things to make sure that everyone knows where they're going. And, you know, you're essentially, you guys are working to raise a family, not just provide for them, too.
I don't think I'm organized at all. Just you know, my shit's everywhere.
Cool.
You should see my room.
Yeah, cool. If that's the one place that's a disaster, that's all right.
It's all over the place.
How else do you wind up managing your downtime, though?
I don't even know. I mean, pre-COVID.
Well, we're in a different life now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, like when you're there, you just have to be involved. So, you know, fortunately enough, I was able to have, you know, Sunday, Mondays off. So, I'm home all day with them Sunday. Like, let's, you know, whatever we got to do, let's do it. And then, you know, being home with my son all day on Monday was, you know, a blessing. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd see him maybe 30 minutes a day. You know, see my wife maybe an hour and a half a day.
How many hours typically get put into the work shifts where you're just, you know, missing for a while?
I mean, I would commute about an hour to and from work, so I'm leaving for work at 10 in the morning, getting home at 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah, that's a long day.
Yeah.
The similar where I just took up a residency in Governor's Island working at a bar out there, 2 hours to work, 2 hours back from work.
Crazy.
It's absurd. So when at the end of the day, when you're sitting there and you're like, all right, well, it was pretty busy today, and then you look at your pay, you have to include those extra 4 hours into the pay.
Yeah.
And at that point, you break it down and you're just like, is it even worth it? Which in the future, maybe it will be when things go back to having max capacity in places. But, you know, right now we're more so on the tip forefront. It's kind of just like, all right, we need to find a place that's a little bit closer and a little bit more busy for the winter, because taking a 4-hour commute just to get your foot in the door with a company that could potentially be great the following year is not really, I think, where you want to be.
This is classic Jay, front of house guy, complaining about tips to the back of house guy.
Yeah. They're going to find me in the back of the car later on.
On his worst day, he's probably making, double what we're making, and he's complaining about it.
Well, no, because it evens out in a lot of cases.
No. Listen, you got two back of house guys, and an owner is sitting in front of you. No one wants to hear you bitch about your tips.
I can say from personal experience, having cooked for the last 8 to 10 years, now managing a bar, the tips are a lot fucking better working at the bar. A lot better.
And then what's your shift hours? Like 6?
Right.
No, I mean, my shift hours is still 9 to 10 hours a day.
What are your shift hours?
Like 4 hours. I had a 4-hour commute, so that was like 8 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
So halfway through.
Yeah. Cut me right back down to the $20 hourly mark. Leave me alone. Get out of here.
Complaining about 20 an hour. Yeah.
Well, it's New York City prices.
Oh, yeah. Still. Come see us in the kitchen.
Oh, they'll come see me. They'll come see me in tax time. But so, I think you have to choose your battles of figuring out for the future where we wind up working next, as we might deal with more shutdowns and we might deal with less occupancy. And yeah, that will hurt the front of the house on the tip side. The back of the house, you're going to have hours. You'll still continually getting the hourly wage, but everything changes a little bit than I guess what it typically once was. I thought you were grabbing that to yell at me again. I was getting ready to just get yelled at.
I wasn't gonna yell. I wasn't gonna yell.
Tell me about beers, James. You're wearing a hat right now of a local beer spot. What's the word I'm looking for? Brewery?
Yeah.
Roadhouse? You're a beer fan a little bit.
It just has beer.
We got to circle back here and start talking about the winter beers, where last episode just really shit on winter beers, and it was incorrect. It was an opinionated statement, and I think that we have to refute a little, Just.
I don't want to refute. I stick by my story. But I will make a few exceptions, I guess, to the rule. Like I said, all winter beers suck. And my point was that they all tend to be overly malted and cinnamony, nutmeg, winter spice, Christmas spice.
Yeah.
And when I said that last week, we didn't really get into it. And I got a bunch of text messages. How could you say this? Blah, 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 whatever. So I looked it up, and I said, okay, let me look it up. What's the 20 most popular winter ales, etc.? And no surprise, it's Christmas ale, Santa's lap dance. Every single one was the same thing of like, Christmas ale, snow melt, special holiday ale, Old English ale, Malga, just look down the list.
Are you just saying Christmas words together?
That's what it says.
The point is this, right?
That's what it says.
And as somebody here, I'll give you this.
I'm looking on this list. I don't actually see Santa's lap dance. Is that something you made up, or is that a real thing?
No, there's like Santa's little helper.
Oh, okay.
As somebody that at one point in time was a little bit of a beer nerd and really enjoyed being out there getting after the beers, if you asked me right now if I knew one of those beers that are on that top 40 list sitting in front of you, I don't think I know one single of those beers. Which leads me to my next point, is that I feel like craft beer is a bubble. No, I don't think it's going to explode because people keep drinking beers. But I don't know how many guys are going to be able to just stay in business consistently, as there's so much competition out here with all these different beers that show up on shelves. And it's a huge struggle to try to get into these storefronts at this point too. And, you got to find guys like Halftime that have essentially the Walmart version of a beer spot where it's like, which aisle do you want to go to? Do you want to stay in the Americas? Do you want to go to Europe? Do you want to find more craft stuff? But this whole list, everything on there is very similar, at least upon a little bit of a deeper inspection, where, again, what you just said, you've got toffee notes, you've got coffee, you've got hazelnut, you've got, what else is even listed in here? Caramel. And some of them are stouts, some of them are browns, some of them are porters, and some of them are just these spiced ales, which all, to me, taste super the same, except for the ABV. And the higher that alcohol content is, the harder they have to mask it. And you see those 10%ers up there, you're really getting all of those spiced notes to try to counteract it, which to me then just makes it taste a little bit more like rubbing alcohol. I can't do that anymore.
It just overpowers everything about it.
It certainly is. And I'm not going to say that winter beers are a terrible beer type. We did go over in the last episode, if you were putting together beer taps, what you kind of need to formulate on your 8, what did we do, 8 taps, 12 taps we used, for example?
We did 8, and then, we did an 8-tap draft system.
So we kind of just ran over what to kind of put on to satisfy a little bit of everybody without leaving nobody out. Is that a sentence that worked?
That's basically
that sounded good.
Okay.
And offsetting in the can.
Yeah, so...
But that's that offsetting what you don't have on tap with the can. And that's what led to my statement, because, winter beers are...
Yeah, but that's your seasonal, and we dedicated, I think, 1 or 2 of those craft lines.
I will say, I will backtrack in one sense. And there's a few really good stouts that come out around the winter season. I don't know that you would generally call them winter seasonal ales, because they don't have to only exist in winter, but that just happens to be the rotation they come out. And it is stout season, I guess. You're more inclined to drinking a heavier stout in the winter when it's a little colder out, as opposed to sitting at the bar, taking in an 8-9% stout and it's 90 degrees out.
I will do that.
Okay. But like you have the Bourbon County, that comes out Black Friday actually for the whole holiday season.
Is that as big as it was?
It's definitely not as big as it was, but it's still a solid beer.
I remember the Goose Island nights that we had at Smokehouse, the original Smokehouse. Those were fun nights.
I still have a couple barrels sitting downstairs.
That's awesome.
Oh,
that we sat on. Yeah,
you're extra aging.
Yeah.
At what point, might they just not even be great?
So we did it all the time. We would order some. I'd order extra and stick them in the basement. So I'll open that in a couple of years. Yeah, I still have it. Yeah, it's in the. So that's a funny story. I don't know if who cares? It's down there. So
you have to recover the story.
All right, so. Dogfish makes Worldwide Stout very spotty, right? But they don't make it every year. I don't even know when the last time they make it, but it's an 18-19% stout. It's phenomenal. At the time that it came out, they had a Dogfish rep that was in charge of allocating these barrels and so on and so forth. When it comes out along with the 120-minute, their IPA, the big IPA that they put out. So they have somebody in charge of allocating these, so the right bars, the right restaurants get, an even spread of all this stuff. So that sales rep left right before the time of the year that Worldwide Stout and 120-minute would come out. Me knowing it's about to come out and there's no sales rep in charge, I kind of asked for, hey, and the distributor was also switching sales reps, so it was kind of a perfect storm of no Dogfish rep in the area and no direct sales rep in our area. So I just called and had them email me their inventory every week, and I would order off of that. So as soon as it hit, and I saw how many WWS kegs were in there and how many 120-minute kegs were in there, I just called the order board and ordered all of them. Right? And of course, the order board didn't know the allocations because there was no Dogfish rep to oversee that. And there was no area sales rep to also manage that, so they sent me 10 kegs of 120-minute IPA and maybe 5 or 6 kegs of Worldwide Stout. A couple cases and so on and so forth. So it was
genius.
It was a good haul.
We had way too much of this stuff.
And then at that time period, too, though, that you're talking about, people were genuinely excited about it. And that's why I also say it's kind of like a craft beer bubble, because people I don't think, have that same level of excitement that they once did have when these releases would happen.
I want to say this was like 2014, probably about when that happened, 2013, 2014. I remember the 120 night. I was in school, culinary school. It was I had class from 6 to 10. At like 9:30, I said something so I could leave class and come back to Neuro and start drinking with you guys. Because I remember when you said you were going to tap it at like 8:30, 9 o'clock or something like that, and then you only had it until it ran out. So Dan was working the bar, and I had him just pour me a pint and just leave it in the fridge till I got there.
Oh, it wasn't a pint. It was a 7 ounce.
Yeah, it was
22% alcohol. We're not throwing pints out.
Yeah.
Have you formulated winter taps coming in here yet, or no?
No, right now, in the real world, right, I would be formulating the winter taps and getting ready to switch it over. But right now, since we reopened past the COVID, we've just been having. We're at 10 out of 20 draft lines that we have operational because 50% capacity. I'm not going to run through as much. We had that conversation last week about I don't want a keg on a line for more than a week to keep its freshness. So we're only running 10 out of the 12 draft lines as it is. And one of them is a draft root beer. One of them is a sangria. So that leaves 8 beers left to go. There we go. We built our 8 beer draft list last week. But we're focusing on just the like hyper local breweries right now. So instead of looking all over the place for, whatever Christmas ale and, those type of things, we're just keeping it, in county, New York City, maybe a little bit upstate, and just, trying to support the businesses that are around us.
Of course, and I think that makes the most sense to be doing anyway. In general, obviously, I'm all about local product.
Nice plug.
Yeah, that's my LLC,
He's wearing
by
the
way.
shirt. He's wearing the shirt.
Have you guys
He
ever
didn't
had,
even know he was wearing the shirt. He didn't even know.
I've got a Doug Funny closet. I got like 14 of them. Have you guys had mulled wine before?
What?
Mold wine.
Yeah.
Mulled wine?
That's what I said.
Yeah, it sounded like mold wine.
Yeah, I heard mold.
It's mold.
No, mulled.
Mold.
Mulled.
Mold wine.
You know what I'm saying.
Jay, you got to enunciate. We had this
Yes.
conversation before we started recording.
So, this is probably one of my favorite things to see out and about or even make at this time of the year. Just because it has all those warm feelings. It's like essentially having a winter beer, but way more tasty and delicious.
You compared mulled wines to winter beers?
Yeah, correct. Because it has these spices in there. It's a little bit sweeter, obviously. But mulled wine itself is a warm wine that's been kind of souped up with some spices, maybe a little honey, some orange zest or orange cut slice, however you want to do it. The thing is, there's no like real specific recipe. It's like a stew if it was alcoholic and red wine based and a lot tastier and sweet, right? But I think
that was a stretch.
Yeah, I'm stretching.
Okay.
But with mulled wine, you've seen this sometimes in a couple establishments. I haven't seen it around here that much, but I did go into a place in D.C. that actually did have some, which was awesome because I've never seen a crock pot sitting behind the bar before, just, keeping this nice and warm. But the thing is, when this was, I guess, invented far back into ancient Greek areas, what they did was instead of wasting the wine, because wasting wine is a sin, they would wind up putting it all into a pot. They put all the spices in, they put the honey, they reduce it a little bit, and then they would wind up just serving it warm, and that was it. The thing is, if you've got open bottles of wine behind your bar, you can actually wind up kind of being able to repurpose these before they even get to the point of going bad, or you can use cheaper bottles of wine because it doesn't really matter.
Do you have a go-to mulled wine recipe?
No, not a specific recipe at all, besides having some cloves in there, some cinnamon in there, some honey in there.
You lost me already.
Sometimes a little brandy or cognac. This is not for you, I presume.
Not for me. No.
I'll be the guy that's ordering it at the place.
Okay.
Same. I'm out as well.
So I'm just all alone here on Mulled Wine Island.
I'm in. I'll try it.
All right, see, this is what we got to be getting into. But as far as making a profit margin on this item behind the bar, it's fantastic. You're literally making a rum punch, in a sense, if you will. And breaking that down for $9-10 a glass, you're really making a nice come up here. Everyone's just looking at me in the room like, go fuck yourself.
Well, I'm just saying, if your people are pouring right, then you should have no waste on your bottles to begin with.
That doesn't happen. Yeah,
I mean, that's
that perfect pour where the bottle does break down into 4 glasses doesn't happen.
should.
I mean, yeah,
Terry Lodge, it might be. Not so much in the beer bars around the corner.
Kind of looking at you like, how hard is it to just pour it correctly?
I know. If somebody was, what's the word, Noomz? It sounds like somebody was doing their job incorrectly. That. But all I'm saying is there's a way for wintertime to come here. We could be making nice, warm, sexy punches. We don't have to be doing all of these.
I mean, you can do
margaritas.
that with you just take wine and just do that. Don't take the ass of random wine bottles.
Well, I wasn't insinuating just the ass of the random bottles. I'm just saying before you let them really go bad.
Well, why would you decorate a good wine though?
I'm not saying
necessarily itself.
I'm not saying use a great wine.
Yeah, if it's a good wine.
Right.
I mean, if it's like a $7 bottle or something like
that's true.
You know.
There you go, mulled wine.
Yeah.
You want me to go sit in the corner now or what?
Yeah.
Got it. Heard.
I will say, so of all my research of everything, my one backtrack on the beer episode, on the beer statement, is there is one very underrated beer that comes out in winter, and we pour it all the time, is that Shiner Holiday Cheer, that's brewed with like some peaches or whatever.
That is one of the beers that I do remember from wintertime.
It's really good. I don't see it nearly enough anywhere. So I'll say that. If we're going to go winter ale, I'll go with that Shiner Holiday Cheer because of the peach flavor. Brings it back to summer for me anyway and get out of winter. So you're looking like you're trying to figure out what's happening.
No, I know that you have it on tap every single winter.
He's trying to tie that back into mulled wine.
Yeah, it wasn't working though. What's the next step in your direction coming into the winter as a chef in seeking, I guess, where do we go next? How do we perform through the winter? What do you forecast the future to hold as far as restaurants go?
I mean, it's really your to-go business. I mean, if you're not cranking it out, I don't see people sitting outside in 10-degree weather, 20-degree weather. I don't know. It's hard. I think we're gonna have another shutdown at some point. I mean, it's horrible to say, but it's the only way that it's really gonna go away. I mean, cases are spiking every day, so it's messed up. I don't know. It's hard.
How many guys work off the books that you've seen through years of just running through the restaurants?
Only when I was in Long Island.
Yeah.
Was off the books.
I feel like a lot of Irish pubs typically off the books. You know, these guys, if they weren't prepared well for the original shutdown to happen as it was, there was a big struggle there. And I think it did open up a lot of eyes to people that were saying, all right, I need to be better prepared for this the next time this potentially could happen. Guys started learning to save money a little bit better than, they once were.
Well, it goes down to a living wage. I mean, you have guys that are working, $15 an hour, $16 an hour, under 40 hours a week so that they can't hit that overtime. Like, companies are drilling that in, like, no more than 38 hours. Like, let's say, like, get out, basically. And sometimes that's barely going to pay your rent, And that's where it really affects most people is that hourly wage.
Not bartenders like yourself. They get to sit in the front. Like real people that
Gotcha.
Yeah.
He's talking about people that have to work all day long.
Yeah, no, I get it. Okay. You guys know I work outside like the bar to try to do things, right? I do work all day a lot of times. But
it's a good point with the off the book stuff though that you're making, because if you were somebody that was off the books or anything like that and then this hit, you definitely had a little predicament to put yourself into, because a lot of the fail safes or whatever that the governments in the states provided were based off of whatever you were putting on the books. And you went to unemployment, you got a certain amount of money, then you had the $600 thing that went for a little while. But if you're a server like yourself or you're a bartender or whatever, and you're not declaring majority of your tips depending on how the restaurant goes, etc., what they make you declare, if they make you put your credit cards on or whatever, and you're not declaring it, and all of a sudden you get let go and you have to collect unemployment. You're collecting unemployment on 25% of what you're actually taking home. So you're your lifestyle takes a real adjustment. I think a lot of people learn through this how big of an adjustment sometimes your lifestyle. I mean, we're lucky enough that we stayed open the whole time, but it definitely was still a lifestyle adjustment. You know, what you had to go through and et cetera. And there's a lot of people that left the business because of that.
I mean, definitely. I mean, a lot of people look to like open their eyes that can I even keep doing this?
Right.
Yeah.
When I say, and again, to pull back into the unemployment and seeing that check, I think that check was like $230 that was cut, and I was like, how can anybody just pay anything with this? You know, you're talking about every week getting $230. That's rent out of the 4 weeks right there, maybe, right? Like,
maybe.
Intense, super intense. So I think guys are definitely aware the holiday season's here. This is not going to be a typical holiday season, I think, for a lot of people that are in this industry for the most part. And you're really watching what's happening because, yeah, if we do hit that shutdown again, then the people that are still maybe off the books are going to be like, shit, now I'm really going to be feeling this in a second.
You know, I will say, just to circle back a little bit, so what James was talking about earlier, about, you know, time with family and stuff like that, at least in my particular situation, because of the hours changed and, you know, et cetera, we're not open all night. So instead of getting home at 1, 2 in the morning, I'm getting home at 10, 11 o'clock. So it's a little easier to wake up in the morning. And, you know, I have very similar kind of story with, you know, my wife. When we opened the restaurant, we didn't get paid. We didn't take a paycheck for a year, 4 years maybe. You know, that Mike and I didn't take a paycheck. You know, we worked off. I mean, in the beginning it was just Mike and myself. So if we got a tip or whatever, we would split that. But you know, we basically worked off peanuts for 4 years trying to build the business, and we didn't take a paycheck. And Nicole, my wife, her, you know, she was understanding through the whole thing and like kind of understood what we were doing, and she held us up for that first couple of years. And my whole goal was like, I'm telling you, I'm gonna get there, and you know, I'm gonna hold us up. Don't worry. That was the goal. So you gotta have that, you know, same thing like James was saying. You gotta have that trust and that work back and forth and understanding what's going on. But I will say, when this hit in March and hours went down, I started to realize more, especially with like, now I have kids and we have a family and etc. The time that the extra time that we had at home, because I was home a little bit earlier, not like completely tired and wanting to sleep half a day, I was kind of appreciate that a little bit more. So don't get me wrong, I want to get back to normal, to where, you know, the restaurant's full and we're greeting guests and the kitchen's firing and everybody's doing whatever, but I'm not completely upset about the little extra time that, you know.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I don't have kids, but it's nice to be home with my girl for more time than I ever was before in the past. You know what I mean? I get to be home and cook dinner. During lockdown, I was cooking dinner like 5 nights a week. I never got to do that before. That's nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you literally get to sit down and eat dinner with her 5 nights a week.
Like, my wife's like, finally I get to eat what you've been cooking for other people for 12 years.
You would see Noomz Instagram day in and day out, and it would be like, bacon wrapped filet mignon this night, like some crazy fish this night. And I was just like, are we not on a lockdown, and should we not be watching our paychecks right now? What is going on here?
I mean,
all I had to do was just make sure we had food to eat. That was it.
That's it. That's all I gotta do. Get rid of my girl and find a chef, you know? Shit. Take us out, Noomz.
Guys, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button, because, you know, algorithms.